you will panic. Not because you're weak, not because you're stupid, but because your brain was never designed for a world where the rules vanish overnight. That moment when the lights don't come back on, when the phone shows no signal, when sirens fade instead of getting closer, that that's when panic doesn't feel like fear. It feels like urgency. It tells you to move, to act, to do something right now. And that's exactly how it kills you. Here's what nobody tells you about collapse scenarios. Most people don't die from starvation, radiation, or violence in the first days. They die from bad decisions made too fast. Panic hijacks the brain's operating system. Your prefrontal cortex, the part that plans, prioritizes, and thinks long term, gets shoved aside by the amygdala, the ancient alarm bell that screams run, grab, flee, fight. Your heart rate spikes, your breathing gets shallow, your vision narrows. This isn't poetic language, it's biology. Blood flow shifts away from fine motor control and complex reasoning toward big muscles and reflexes. Great if you're escaping a predator on the savannah. Fatal if you're navigating a modern collapse filled with invisible dangers. The first lie panic tells you is that speed equals safety. You rush out to secure supplies without a plan, and suddenly you're burning calories you can't replace, exposing yourself to other desperate people, broadcasting movement and noise. Calm people move later. They let the initial chaos burn itself out like a flash fire. This works because most human danger spikes early, when uncertainty is highest and information is lowest. Waiting isn't laziness, it's data collection. This section is based on practical field survival experience rather than formal academic sources. Panic also convinces you that more information is always better, so you keep checking your phone, radio, neighbors, rumors. The brain hates uncertainty, and panic feeds it junk data just to feel busy. The problem is that false certainty is worse than uncertainty. In disasters, misinformation spreads faster than hunger. Calm survivors deliberately limit inputs. They choose one or two reliable sources, check them at set intervals, and then stop. This works because cognitive overload increases anxiety, which increases impulsive behavior, which loops back into more panic. Breaking the loop is survival. Another quiet killer is panic breathing. When stress hits, most people hyperventilate without realizing it. Carbon dioxide levels drop, blood vessels constrict, and suddenly you feel dizzy, detached, unreal. People mistake this for losing it, which makes them panic harder. The fix is embarrassingly simple and brutally effective. Longer exhales than inhales. 4 seconds in, 6 to 8 seconds out. This forces the vagus nerve to downshift your nervous system. Soldiers, firefighters, and surgeons use this because it works under pressure, not because it sounds nice. This section is based on practical field survival experience rather than formal academic sources. Then there's the myth of constant motion. Panic hates stillness. It whispers that if you stop, you'll miss your chance. In reality, stillness is how you notice what others don't. Changes in sound, they're like patterns of movement. Gaps in danger. Predators, human or otherwise, hunt motion. Calm survivors understand that staying put is often the safest move, especially in the first 24 to 72 hours of a collapse. This works because most threats are transient. They pass through. If you don't advertise yourself, you're often not worth the effort. Panic also destroys resource management. You eat because you're stressed, not hungry. You drink because it's comforting, not necessary. You burn batteries, fuel, and light because darkness feels threatening. Calm behavior does the opposite. It turns consumption into ritual and measurement. Small, deliberate actions give the brain a sense of control, which reduces panic naturally. This isn't about discipline, it's about feedback loops. Controlled behavior calms the nervous system, which improves decision making, which reinforces control. Socially, panic makes you either trust everyone or no one. Both are dangerous. Desperate friendliness gets you exploited, total isolation makes you blind. Calm people practice selective engagement. They observe before interacting, share minimal information, and never reveal their full situation. This works because humans under stress overshare without realizing it. Silence is camouflage. Here's the darkest truth. Panic feels honest. It feels like your instincts speaking clearly. But in modern collapse scenarios, instinct is outdated software. Survival now is about regulation, not reaction. The people who make it aren't braver, stronger, or smarter. They're calmer, longer. They slow the moment down when everything inside them is screaming to speed it up. If you remember nothing else, remember this: the disaster doesn't kill you first. Your response to it does. Panic turns small problems into fatal ones. Calm turns chaos into something survivable. And the terrifying part is that the choice between the two happens inside your own head, often before you realize anything has gone wrong. The real danger of panic isn't that it makes you scared. Fear can be useful. Fear sharpens attention. Panic, on the other hand, collapses time. Everything feels immediate. Like if you don't act now, you'll lose your last chance to live. That's why people run toward gunfire instead of away from it, why they light fires indoors, why they drink contaminated water even when they know better. Panic compresses the future into the next 10 seconds and deletes everything beyond it. Survival requires the opposite, stretching time back out so consequences become visible again. There's a reason experienced responders look almost bored in emergencies. It's not courage, it's conditioning. They've trained their nervous systems to treat chaos as a signal to slow down, not speed up. You can do a version of this without years of training by anchoring yourself to simple, repeatable actions. Touch something solid. Sit instead of stand. Put your back against a wall. These aren't comfort behaviors. They're neurological hacks. Physical stability feeds mental stability. Your brain reads stillness in the body as reduced threat, which lowers stress hormones and restores access to rational thought. Another thing panic steals from you is accuracy. Under stress, humans are spectacularly bad at estimating distance, time, and quantity. You think that building is closer than it is. You think you've been walking for hours when it's been 20 minutes. You think your supplies are almost gone when you've barely touched them. Calm behavior recalibrates perception. Writing things down helps. Marking time deliberately helps. Counting steps, tracking daylight, noting consumption. These boring actions keep you grounded in reality when your senses are lying to you. Panic also makes noise. Literal noise and behavioral noise. Slamming doors, rushing footsteps, unnecessary conversations, visible movement. In unstable environments, noise is information, and information attracts attention. Calm people shrink their footprint. They move slowly, speak less, and leave fewer signs of their presence. This works because most threats are opportunistic. If you don't stand out, you're rarely worth the risk. One of the most dangerous moments in any collapse is the false calm after the initial shock. The power flickers back on briefly. The streets seem quiet. People convince themselves it's over. Panic doesn't always look frantic. Sometimes it looks like denial. That's when people go back to normal routines too fast, expose themselves, and get caught by the second wave. Aftershocks, secondary failures, human violence. Calm isn't optimism. It's caution without paralysis. There's also a social contagion element to panic that almost no one talks about. Emotions spread faster than information. One panicked person in a group can destabilize everyone else within minutes. Calm people act as dampeners. Their measured tone, slow movements, and refusal to escalate can literally lower stress levels in others. This isn't leadership in the movie sense, it's nervous system influence. Groups with at least one regulated individual make better decisions under pressure. Groups without one spiral. You might think you'll rise to the occasion when it happens. Almost everyone believes that. The uncomfortable truth is that stress reveals defaults. It doesn't create new skills. If you don't practice calming yourself now, you won't suddenly discover that ability when everything is on fire. The good news is that regulation is trainable. Small exposures to discomfort, deliberate breathing under stress, rehearsing do nothing as an action, these build the muscle you'll actually need. Here's the final brutal irony. Panic feels like action, but it's usually avoidance. It avoids thinking, it avoids uncertainty, it avoids responsibility for long-term consequences. Calm is harder. Calm forces you to stay present, to see clearly, to accept that survival is not dramatic. It's quiet, repetitive, and often boring. And that's why it works. If this ever happens to you and your heart is racing and your mind is screaming that you're running out of time, remember this: you don't need to do everything. You need to do the next right thing slowly. Panic will tell you that you're about to die. Calm will quietly keep you alive.